Thank you. Joint Conference Committee number 1 on Senate File 153 is continued from our earlier discussion this morning. All right, Mr. Winnie, thank you. Mr. Winnie, we are convened now for our conference committee, and we've got a couple things. The first one is thank you for meeting us and continuing this discussion. One thing we didn't talk about this morning as we discussed the bill was the amendment that came from the House that inserted beneficial on page 2, line 20. So any feedback you can give us on that would be appreciated. I actually did visit with our LSO attorney on our side, so anyway, any feedback you can give, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the driver for that was that the beneficial owner of the property, it was based on some legal discussion, at least that happened on the floor, that was believed to provide more clarity specifically to that and not harm the bill, not make a significant difference, but just the insertion of the beneficial. So if you have additional input on that, certainly we're open for conversation on that.
So thank you. So, and I apologize, I didn't remember to ask that query this morning. I did go in and visit with just for the members to consider, I did go in and visit with LSO attorneys. They visited with the drafters on your end, your bullpen, and they did understand that that perspective of beneficial owner. Unfortunately, the only time beneficial owner is used in statute, Wyoming statute, is under trust statute. So our attorney was actually concerned that this might actually block out just a natural person, because this is a beneficial owner. If we don't have a definition of what a beneficial owner is in the context of this particular statute. So I just throw it out there. If we get to working the bill, we may want to consider whether you want to retain that beneficial language or come up with a definition accompanying it. So I just throw that out there, and I'd be glad to take any comments. My colleagues, I didn't run this by my Senate colleagues before we came down here, because I literally just had these conversations or follow-up conversations. So anything on your perspective, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and that would not be, as far as I'm concerned, that could be dropped. I don't think we want to entangle the bill with that if there's any confusion at all based on that.
Very good. Well, thank you. So we've been provided a potential amendment. It's before you, and Senator Case, Senator McEwen, and myself have been provided this. So, Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman, if you want to just walk us through what you think might be a resolution from the House's perspective, and then you can make it as a motion, or you can just walk us through it, and then we can go from there. However you'd like, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would actually move this amendment. And what this amendment basically does, thank you. And what this amendment basically does is it makes it to where in the first year in 2025, the rate is at 9.5% for the residential real property, including owner occupied. And then in the second year, on tax year 2026 and thereafter, residential real property will be 9.5%, and owner-occupied residences will be at 8.3%. That's the first part of this amendment, and that actually occurs in two places, as you guys can see there. It's just conforming across the bill. The second piece of this was just to make a couple of minor changes that we made to the original engrossed version on page 2. You'll see on page 2, line 21, we changed 6 months to 8 months. And on page 2, line 22 is where we inserted, unless the owner is an active duty member of the armed forces who is deployed outside of the state. So this just allows that military duty consideration for the owner occupied component. So that is the proposal in its entirety that I've just moved. So,
thank you. Thank you. So the second page for my colleagues is actually the amendment as it would be if it was a conference committee, would be the amendment that we would report back on the conference committee. So what we're doing really is going back to the committee of the whole amendment number 2, that removes that second reading amendment number 3 language, the 8.3 later. We're also removing the beneficial, actually, I think this move removes the beneficial language. I also think it removes, let's look at that again. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about where we end up. And maybe this is where we end up. There's nothing else getting left out here. So I believe, yeah, beneficial is dropped from the bill, what we just talked about, as is the third reading amendment, which is the change from 9.5 to 8.3 that's reflected in this proposed language. And then Senate file and the number 1. Oh, standing committee amendment. Sorry, standing committee amendment. Okay, this is deleted. Okay. Any questions from my Senate colleagues on the proposal? Questions? Yeah, anything further from your colleagues? No? All right. We're going to vote on the proposed amendment from our House colleagues. Yeah, discussion. Yeah, that's what I meant. Discussion on the amendment. Sorry. Questions, discussion, I should have said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I read this, one of the interim topics we have is Amendment A, to get everything in line. And if we're not doing anything with this until 2026, I believe we should take it up in committee and come to an answer there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment as proposed? Further discussion? Seeing none? Why don't we just do a roll call? I know all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. All those opposed?
No.
3 no's. So we're at, that one fails. I guess as a counteroffer, we would, the Senate, as you can imagine, would, to Senator Chairman's, your co-chairman's, your other co-chairman's point, believes that this is going to be worked on during the interim. We would ask you to consider going to the Senate position. And that's my motion, to adopt the Senate position as it came out in the engrossed copy. Any comments or thoughts or suggestions from the, go ahead, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to vote against that. In my opinion, if we're going to do this, we should do what has kind of, for lack of a better term, been promised to the people. Try to do it with putting something in there to help the folks. So I'm going to vote against that position, but.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to get a feel from the members of the Joint Conference Committee if everything is, are we agreeing on everything, the framework of this bill, except for the 8.3 versus the 9.5 in the second year? Is that the only portion that we need to negotiate on? Is everything else okay? In my mind, that's the only sticking point, is the 8.3 versus 9.5. Everything else in the bill, I think we have agreed to, but I want to make sure I'm not seeing this through rose-colored glasses.
Thank you. I would say that I think that would be accurate. So what it would do, we would still, going back, if we want to take that first motion, it would be to delete the standing committee, the committee of the whole amendment number 2. The other way you could do it is adopt the language of that. We could adopt and further amend to a different rate. And I think that may be what you're trying to get to. So I just want to be clear, is that kind of what you're getting to? So any comments from my Senate colleagues? Go ahead, Senator McKeon.
I don't like the 8 months language in it. I'm not sure I support owner occupied as a subclass right now. And like I said, we're looking at it during the interim. We can get a lot of input and probably come away with something that's better.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
where I'm at.
Thank you. So maybe there was more that I didn't know. Senator Case, anything? Nothing? No? Would you use your microphone? If you choose to make comment, please use the microphone. Thank you.
I feel like Chairman Scott.
Can't get it to work. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I help Charlie every time. He sits right
Sorry,
by me.
Charlie. That didn't, wasn't meant to be disrespectful. I really apologize. That was stupid. I think I agree with my revenue chairman. I think this should be just as narrow as possible and create the tier and let us deal with it later. There's other policy decisions that are compounding, and I don't really think we're part of the original bill. So in terms of, thank you.
Thank you. Any of your colleagues? Go ahead, please. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm grateful to find out that there's more for the discussion other than just the 8.3 versus a 9.5. Because I would like, if that was the only sticking point, I think I would be willing to negotiate that percentage between the two chambers, excuse me. But whereas it's more than that, just that, there's a lot more discussion to be had, and I would think that we need to adjourn at an impasse and go to a free committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other further comments? There's a motion. The motion would be to the House to adopt basically the engrossed, the engrossed bill. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
This is the engrossed bill?
The engrossed bill is the blue bill.
Yep,
Well,
aye.
as it left its-
I'll vote
as
aye.
left Senate. Aye. All those opposed, no?
No.
Okay, that one fails. So we've failed two motions, Mr. Chairman, co-chairman. And I don't think that's because we don't think there's a path, but I think maybe we should, I would respect your thoughts, all of our thoughts on whether we report back to our presiding officers that we were unable to come to. I mean, I think after a reasonable discussion and getting good input, information to base that on, that we've come to an impasse. Joint Conference Committee has failed to come to a resolution. I don't want to say we failed, but failed to come to a resolution. And it'll be up to the presiding officers whether they want to, I mean, it's always up to the presiding officers whether they want to appoint a second conference committee. So we're not, I mean, we can make a recommendation if you want to your House and we can to ours. But any thoughts on that from you, Mr. Chairman, or colleagues?
Mr. Chairman, I'm right with you on that. I think that's where we need to go, and we will definitely report back to our.
Okay, thank you very much.
Speaker.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, please.
Just some speculation on what will happen if we fail to come up with a bill. So tax notices will go out in May. And at that time, our local assessors will be using 9.5%, and they will be applying it to residential property. It is conceivable, I think kind of a long shot, that a taxpayer could feel aggrieved by that and would file a lawsuit. It is conceivable that that lawsuit could be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. I'd kind of doubt it, but I'm not sure how that would all progress. But however, the tax notices would still go out, and unless a court issued a stay, they would be the legal tax notices. There's an opportunity in that period of time, if a lawsuit challenge seemed very likely and could be successful and put the collection of property taxes in doubt, the legislature could remedy it by coming back in a special session. And we'd have time to do that and make it work if we had to. I know that's kind of a big deal, but on the other hand, that would protect the 9.5%, which is important to me, and protect that policy thing. So I'm actually willing to go down that road.
Thank you. That was more of a broader statement, but Chairman or anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and really, had we just assuming we'd assumed the Senate's position, the numbers would not have been would not have changed, so I think they're, I will, just listening to my colleagues' approach there, nothing's changed at this point, so, thank you.
Thank you. So this joint conference committee number 1 on Senate File 153 is going to adjourn with a lack of a resolution to the positions between the bodies. We're thankful to the department for their assistance today, thankful to our LSO staff for their assistance, thankful to all those who've interested parties who are here, and we thank our House colleagues for their thoughtful approach. Have a great day, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.